It can't be that bad, oh, 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 it can't be that bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very numb to horror films now.
Used to be terrifying.
I have it pretty much all figured out. Thanks to you and Karen, I watched something that's vaguely spooky all the time.
Vaguely spooky.
Well, and by vaguely, I mean sometimes it's very scary, but...
Would you say the last scariest, like the last most scary thing you've seen is Hereditary from last year?
That will always hold up to be one of the scariest things I've ever seen.
So good. So disturbing.
But not scary like jump out and scare you. Like it was just a fucked up movie that made me feel very, very uncomfortable.
That's the best part about it.
If you say so.
Like,
but I've watched a lot of horror films recently, and like it's, I mean... Ghosts, zombies, witches, murderers, blood, pumpkins.
What'd you think about this movie?
I really liked it. Actually, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. And like we said before we recorded, what surrounds Blair Witch... Oh, spoilers.
Hey, yeah, Baddies, we watched The Blair Witch Project. Let's welcome them, first of all.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Baddies, sorry, we've just been catching up for the longest time. It's been a while, and we miss you. I've missed my co-host right here, so let's give them a proper welcome. So welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, to another episode of ICBTB podcast. Because it's been so long since we've done a movie review.
I don't even remember how it goes. You know what? Watching a movie, I forgot how it goes.
It's been a while for me to have watched a movie and actually pay attention to it, knowing that I'm going to talk about it later.
And this is a fun movie that has a lot of chew on it when it comes to the information that's not on screen.
Yeah. What makes this movie really good is the fact that we all questioned growing up, was it real? Because it kind of...
I thoroughly believed it was when I was a kid.
Did you...
Up until I understood how movies are made.
Have you seen this movie before?
No, of course not.
But you always knew about it?
Yes.
What did you know about the Blair Witch Project prior to watching it for this podcast?
I knew it was handheld.
Yeah.
I knew it was a scary movie. Mm-hmm. And I knew it made a bunch of money.
There you go. Yeah, you're spot on. Even before doing any research for this, I didn't realize that there was any sort of like actual lore to it. I thought the writers and directors...
But there isn't, though.
But something exists from it, right? Does this place not exist?
The directors, the two guys who wrote it and directed it, made this up.
Shut up. They created the mythology?
But here's the special thing that I learned about it.
Okay.
There's one lady in the beginning, you know, when they're interviewing people in the town. Mm-hmm. Those were all just random people that they had asked to interview.
Yeah.
And they started talking about this. But I think the woman with the child, when they said, oh, yeah, you know, hey, we're going to go up and know about the Blair Witch, she was like, oh, I know about the Blair Witch. Mm. And now that could have just been...
Incredible improv?
A person just... Well, first of all, this film is...
All improv.
Yeah. But she could have been... You know how sometimes people say, like, oh, have you heard about this? And you're like, oh, yeah, totally. And then you just kind of like run with it or whatever. She could have been just trying to relate to it and just get on camera. Or it reminded her of a story that she did hear or something. Or maybe there is a real lore that was out there and things like that. But even in the movie... There's 2 or 3 stories of what makes Blair, the city of Blair, scary, right? And then I kind of have a theory that we'll get to at the end of it that we can get to. But no, it was originally all made up.
Really?
If there is lore to it now, it's what they call in the cryptic community a tulpa.
You've talked about tulpas before, yeah.
It's a thing that doesn't exist until you think about it, but now that you're thinking about it, it exists and it has real ramifications. My biggest example. Slender Man.
That's what I was going to say.
Yep.
Something formed on the internet and turned into these creepy stories that is now what it is, right?
And whether it's real or not, those 2 girls stabbed the fuck out of that one girl out in the Midwest, and they're serving real time for it.
Real ramifications for something that was made up.
Whether Slender Man's real or not, a little girl was killed because of him.
Okay, so what's the name of the city that this takes place in?
So it was Blair.
Yeah.
But they renamed it to Bucketsville,
Bucketsville. Let's see. Burkittsville, Maryland. So,
which is a real place.
Okay. See, like now I'm trying to like figure out. So, is it true that it used to be called a place named Blair?
That I don't know.
Right.
I think the places are real. Mm-hmm. Right. We know Burkittsville's a real place. We know that they had a cemetery. And being in Massachusetts, if it has any kind of history pre-colonial days, there's definitely some sort of Salem witch trial story there.
Doing some research on this movie just because I was like, is the lore for this real? Like they're saying, yeah, back during the Salem witch trials that some girl, what's her name? Like Ellie Kedward. So they said that Ellie Kedward was a woman that existed during the Salem witch trials, right?
Okay.
Or during that time period.
And those were real things. They murdered a lot of women, mostly because they had clits.
Yep. And sadly, that's the truth, right?
I'm 100% honest.
What they said about this Ellie Kedward girl is that she had a horrible upbringing. Her mom died of childbirth. Her father died from like, I don't know, he died violently.
Yikes.
And with that, she went to like an orphanage or some shit like that. But she got reeled into this occult type of thing.
I mean, that's not a good equation.
No, horrible upbringing, turned into a witch, and that's what happened, and like so on and so forth. And that was like the foundation of the lore of this. And then there's like some other guy that they talk about in the beginning of the
pedophile rapist.
Rustin Parr.
Rustin Parr, okay.
Rustin Parr, they talk about him in the documentary a little, or like in this movie at the beginning. Rustin Parr, they said, is this like serial killer back that existed in that city and killed like 7 kids that got lost in the woods. And they even say, which is crazy, they were like, apparently like he brings kids to his cabin in the woods, brings them to the basement, makes one of them face the corner of the wall, and kills the other person and disembowels them.
I thought he makes that one kid watch.
No, he makes them turn around.
Oh, I thought when I had read the story of Rustin Parr, I thought he made that one kid watch as he killed the other 6.
See, Rustin Parr is real, right? There's actual footage. Is this just all part of the propaganda
it's
that
all
is
fake
to promote this shit?
We'll get into that.
Man, I got my goosebumps are going away as we're talking.
Rustin Parr is an anagram for Rasputin.
I'm fucking upset.
And
I thought this was
one
real.
of the things that the directors and writers wanted to have of this idea of like, you know, they could never kill Rasputin. He's still alive. So even though he took these kids up and killed them back in the 40s, that house that they found was still
there.
Was still his with the kid handprints and shit like that.
Yeah.
And so that's my theory of this whole thing. I don't think that there's actually witches in this film. I think it's actually this pedophile rapist killer who's still out there, who these people got too close to his stuff, and he kind of played up the witch thing to keep people out of the woods. And he's the one who ended up killing them.
There's a lot of theories.
I'm sure I'm not the first
movie
one to think that by far.
That he still exists.
Yeah.
So in what structure do we want to tackle this movie? Because there's so much. This is a beast of a film.
So I'm liking this idea of you have read things and really believe this film. And I've read things that purely completely contradict it and have like
I like this idea
reasons why
me looking stupid on camera for having believed this.
Well, it's not that you look stupid, but it's that these people did a really good job of selling it.
Yeah.
So one of the fun things that I learned about this was this film premiered at Sundance.
Oh, nice.
But it premiered at Sundance at midnight.
Scary.
And before you walked into the movie theaters, they handed out missing kid flyers.
That's what I hear.
Of the 3 kids.
And I heard that the marketing strategy for this was so strong. Like, so those missing flyers of the actual actors that portrayed the kids going missing in this film.
Who are all still alive.
They're all still alive, yes. But apparently it was so believable, these missing posters like got out there, that the mother of the main actress that played Heather Donahue, I believe.
Believed it.
The mother didn't believe it. The mother of that actress was actually receiving sympathy letters from friends and family because they actually thought her daughter was dead because they saw missing posters of her daughter.
This movie, much like a lot of things that are staples in culture and pop culture and things like that, even though it's, for all intents and purposes, not a very good movie. I mean, we're looking at garbage for about 60% of the film.
Yes, objectively speaking in that sense.
And the character structure is okay. It's clearly improvised, but it's real world-ish documentary footage anyways. But this movie, when it came out, was one of the first films to really use an internet like marketing scheme.
Because it had its own website.
And so that plus the missing flyers that they handed out, and I mean the town of Burkittsville, yeah. The movie theater didn't play this film. They chose not to play this film in their movie theater because
that's a little too real.
It was already a big deal that people were seeing it and coming to that town and stealing signs and fucking up their cemeteries and doing shit that fans of movies do, right? Like the Joker stairs that he's dancing on, that's like in the heart of the Bronx and super ghetto, but like now a bunch of tourists go there and take pictures, and people used to like die and sell drugs there and shit.
So
like
now
that.
it's ruined the place.
It's I
Not
mean,
ruined
it's
the
potentially saved it, but it's also really weird. It's
Yeah.
It's like the Exorcist stairs in Washington D.C.
People visit that.
Most photographed thing in Washington D.C.
You're kidding.
No,
People are like, oh, I saw this in like a very scary movie,
all over the world.
and I want to go there.
But so it's one of those things, I believe. But this film, I mean, nobody doesn't know the Blair Witch Project.
Everyone knows it. I'm just repeating what you're saying.
That's right.
You spoke in a double negative. I had to clarify.
Thank you for the smarter kids. Should we do the itty bitty nitty gritty?
It's been so long.
See if we remember how to do this.
All right.
So this movie that we watched was called The Blair Witch Project. It was released in 1999 and has a rating of R.
Oh, I haven't heard that in so long.
So scary. It has a runtime of 1 hour and 21 minutes or 81 minutes. Perfect.
Perfect runtime, dude.
Yeah.
I stopped it. I paused it. I was just like, I wonder how much more of this I have to watch.
Well, here's the good news is you can pretty much walk away and come back. You don't miss too much.
No, not at all.
Yeah, no, they take their time.
It's a slow burn.
Even for 1 hour and 21 minutes. We pretty much watched them set up and take down a campsite 4 separate times.
Yeah, basically the
it's a lot of how to camp.
first 15 minutes is just interviews with the townspeople.
Yeah.
The next hour is just like them lost in the woods.
And like shitty GoPro footage.
And then the last 10 minutes is when it gets like pretty eerie.
So it has a 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb and 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. And did you see the Google users?
I did not.
Would you like to guess the Google users?
I'm gonna think that it's low because a lot of people are gonna rate this down because it fucked them up. I know it fucked Melissa up as a child.
This makes witches very scary. And now as a person who has read a lot about witchcraft and even attempted 1 or 2 things, this is all the scary witchcraft.
Yeah.
Like they just took all the scary things and this isn't witchcraft. Just like Hereditary isn't Satanism.
This is just taking, well, I mean, they had to kind of sell this, dude.
They take something and make it scary.
I'm going to say 76%.
81%.
Ooh, okay.
I don't have a synopsis, but I mean, The Blair Witch Project is a 1999 American supernatural horror film depicted as a documentary. And to this day, there are still people who believe that it is either based on real events, reenacted on real events, written about real events, or it's just a fucking movie that was made.
See,
I believe it was just a movie that was just fun.
I know that it was a movie I know that it was fake. The actual movie, it's fake because Melissa was asking me. She was just like, "This wasn't real, right?" And that's what I used to think as a kid.
That's how they sold it.
Right? They're like, "There's no way they're gonna make people watch this in theaters of 3 actual missing kids."
Well, I mean, what was that other movie where everybody thought the person actually did die? And like that seems like something Hollywood does.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, I mean,
because it sells. It
makes the
shocking.
story more, right?
Yeah.
And in a time pre-chat room, pre-Facebooks, pre-Discord, did you see that movie about 3 kids that went missing?
And by word of mouth.
I saw the real flyer, and it had those kids on it.
Because people actually, I know.
I mean, that's what they say. That's parody.
Yes, they're not actually missing. They're still alive to this day, as we've said. But Paranormal Activity, do you remember that first drop? People were saying like, is this real? Are they dead? Because like this is like a base very similar to this. It's like found footage type of thing,
correct.
Right? And which is why this movie is so important, I think, in the horror genre because it was one of the first to utilize found footage.
It did a really good job with a few things. So the director David, and this is a hell of a last name, Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez.
Yep.
They directed, wrote, they did everything all on their own. And they did it all with a budget of about $200,000. It says $200,000 to $500,000, but I've seen it go up to like $300,000, $400,000.
Yeah.
So even $500,000 is a fairly cheap movie.
Yeah.
In fact, the camcorder that they have in the movie, they returned it when they were done filming.
Oh,
they
so
returned it back to
saved
Circuit
some money.
City. Yeah. But do you want to guess how much this movie made?
I heard it in a video that on YouTube that when I was doing some research, 260 million, right? Something like that.
The common, everyone says $250 million. $250 million. The exact number is 248.6, but
That's
give or take whatever.
crazy.
I'm sure this movie was one of the highest grossing independent films ever to be made, only to be eclipsed by Paranormal Activity right after. And then I still believe the number one indie film ever to be made is Star Wars: A New Hope.
Really?
I believe adjusted for inflation, technically that was an indie film that made the most money ever. That's an Alejandro fact with a grain of salt on it. So, but fun connection. Paranormal Activity was produced by Jason Blum, who created Blumhouse, makes all of these really scary films. He was actually in charge of films for Lionsgate and passed on the Blair Witch Project.
Whoa.
And some of the things that I've read have said, after passing on Blair Witch and seeing what happened, he never wanted to pass on something like that again.
Because, look at what it did.
I made 100% of its money. I made 1,000% its money.
It made so much money for how much it used. It was so minimalist. And apparently it was only 35 pages. The script was 35 pages because they didn't care to write any dialogue. They knew that it was going to be immensely improvised.
Honestly shocked that it's 35 pages long.
Right? It's because, there's not much. It's like, okay, kids are making a documentary about this and that, and get lost in the woods, and they die.
It was also originally meant to be a newsreel. It was going to be a news report. The movie was going to be, it opens with a news reporter giving the story and using this found footage as what's going to tell the story. But they felt that was too scripted, and they really liked this unscripted documentary look of what they ended up really going with.
I loved it, even though it's like, yes, it's not that scary at all. It's more so just stressful because they're yelling at each other and you get kind of dizzy and whatnot.
So it's very tense. They definitely do a really good job of building up the tension, which thriller films before there was like a thriller genre were considered horror. I don't think Jaws is a horror film. I think it's a thriller because they really kind of because I don't think Jaws is all that scary of a thing. It's very graphic and intense, and they build it up just like this movie did.
I thought how they started it off was so scary with just the shaking black screen with the text.
I was honestly kind of pissed.
Why?
Because I was like, so even the text isn't not shaky? Because I knew it was all handheld footage. I was honestly kind of pissed that even the
you were
words,
pissed? The
words,
first 5 seconds.
Why can't they make the words not shake? I know I'm going to be watching shaky footage for the next hour and 20 minutes.
I loved it.
Why couldn't they have had that just be stable?
In 1994, 3 student filmmakers get lost in the woods.
So I would love to see the movie of the people who found the footage. That should have been the sequel.
The people that found the footage apparently was like students. It was like students with a teacher, and they had like just explored the woods for educational purposes. Ran into the house.
How do you know this?
Just from like a YouTube video that explains all of the.
So I want to see that movie.
Blair Witch Mythology.
I want to see that movie.
But it's not as cool. It wouldn't be like a horror movie. It'd just be them finding the shit.
They could make it scary. A teacher takes a few kids into the woods. They start finding all these weird wood things. They're hearing, what's his name, Josh yelling.
But isn't this the same thing?
Oh, no, it's a year later, so they wouldn't hear Josh yelling.
A year later.
Or maybe they do hear
That's
Josh
what I'm
yelling.
saying. We're eventually going to actually talk about, well, there's not much to the movie. We know the kids get lost. We know they fucking die.
Okay, here, I'm going to break down the movie right now. For anybody who hasn't seen it and doesn't want to see it, timer. Go. So 3 kids go to make a college film. They end up really stumbling upon some real witchcraft. I don't think it's real witchcraft. I think it's a guy who's trying to kill them. He ends up luring them to his murder house. It's very scary, the house itself. He murders them there. Movie's over.
14 seconds.
Perfect.
Pretty good. And you got your own opinion in there as well.
I did shoehorn that in.
14-second review by Alejandro.
Hey, you're welcome.
But
I'm not wrong. That's all the points.
Yeah, no, exactly.
The kids argue, of course, just like any camping trip. They get lost and they bicker. Honestly, the bickering was really upsetting to me. I don't like how they ganged up on Heather. And then I also don't like that Heather really took it to heart, too.
They all ganged up on each other at some point, dude.
Oh, and honestly, Mark's the craziest.
Oh, Mike?
Mike.
Right, Mike is the one that kicked the map into the creek.
Which is fucking insane.
He's like, you want to know something funny? I kicked the map up the creek.
I'd kill him right there.
I was so upset.
If it was me, you, and Otis on a camping trip.
Yep.
And any one of us. I realize in that 3, I'd be the one who kicks the map.
Probably. I wouldn't kill you right there and then, but if we did lose you and you started screaming, I'd be like, I'll wait a little bit. He did kick the map up the creek.
Fuck
Alex
if I
right
hear
now.
screaming in the woods, I'm not running towards it.
No, not at all.
I don't care if it's my mother screaming, Alex, come out here, help.
As I was watching.
It's a scam.
Okay, so that's what you thought immediately. You were like,
oh, yeah.
That's not Josh screaming in the woods.
The only time that scared me was after they found his tongue.
That was okay. So that was like his tongue, teeth, and blood wrapped in his flannel.
Yeah.
I've never seen a movie that made a pile of rocks scary like that.
Well, this movie didn't either.
I thought it was creepy. They were like, oh.
No, the bundle of sticks was scary.
Okay, and the actual like little voodoo signs of sticks hanging, the Blair Witch symbols.
So that I'm not actually scared of because growing up in Benicia, there's not a lot of places to hang out. So we would find ourselves in growing out for areas in between homes.
Yeah.
Right? We would call one place, I think we called Jurassic Times.
Yeah, I'm familiar with
And
this
like
place.
there's places behind parks where you hang out. And, you know, asshole kids would make those stick things all the time. So I saw them a lot, not realizing that it was a direct callback to Blair Witch, just realizing that it was just some asshole kids trying to make something scary. Mm-hmm. So like seeing those things, I wasn't actually too scared of them.
You were desensitized to it.
Because I've actually seen them out in the woods and being like, dude, just like some fucking 8th graders did this.
That's like how I'm not scared of dolls that much because my mom has a doll room, right? Very similar.
Yeah, actually, you're right. Annabelle wasn't very scary to me because I've spent the night in a room of 30,000 porcelain dolls.
And you're welcome for that. This movie, apparently they had to audition thousands of actors for this.
2,000 people.
Like crazy for these roles. I mean, like since it is highly improvised and it's like,
And they did it off of Backstage.
is that how they got them?
So back when Backstage was a magazine, that's how they did it.
That's how
now
they found their
Backstage
act?
is an app.
Whoa.
We're not paid by them, by the way. So
We just know stuff about Backstage.
I don't know. Use Bamboozle or whatever the fuck it is. I don't give a fuck.
Whatever you got to do.
We're not clearly getting work.
No, not at all. We're doing this podcast.
Also, I saw some weird sidebar. I saw Jay Leno's show on TV the other day, and I went on demand to try and find your episode. Do you know what number your episode is?
I don't know what number it is. I just
we'll
know
have
the
to try and
title of
figure
it.
that out.
People have been commenting. They've been like sending me stuff like, "Hey, like I see you on TV." I'm like, "Oh, they're still running my episode," and I'm like,
gonna
"That's
find it.
fucking dope."
It's on Peacock.
All of the.
I don't know if it's on
episodes?
Peacock. It's on some sort of demand thing. I don't know. I don't have cable. It was at my parents' house. Anyways, well, how did you feel about Blair Witch? Now, growing up watching scary films, when was the first time you saw it?
I saw it as like probably like a family party or at a cousin's house, and it scared
Weird
the shit
party.
out of me. But I was a kid, so anything scared the shit out of me. But since this looked so real, at first I thought it was real, only to find out like, okay, it's not real.
Yeah.
It still scared the shit out of me.
Of course.
And I have respect for it because it was the first of its kind. Now that I've seen it now that I'm older and I've seen it, not as scary, but I'm so interested about how it was made.
I mean, or for me, the post-production of it is
Yeah.
really fascinating to me for it because it is really, really kind of like wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, when it comes to how they did it. Mm-hmm. It's just what they did with it.
Yeah.
I think for any aspiring filmmaker, you have to, even if you don't like horror like myself, you have to really appreciate Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity for what they've done.
And what movies were inspired by it, right?
Of course. Oh, yeah. I mean, this movie takes a lot from movies like Jaws and, some of like really classic horror films. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, does like a little touch on like vaguely realistic history, which, can get anybody fooled. Yeah. A lot of people think the Da Vinci Code's real. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's the charm of it, is like it's scary because it could be real. We might think it's real.
Couldn't anything be real?
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean,
I also think the vagueness of it being like, they don't ever show a witch. There's no bippity boppity boo to it. That's why, like, my theory of the killer Rasputin or whatever,
Rustin Parr
still being alive, I think holds quite a bit of water.
Let's talk about some of the theories that. Have you come across any theories?
No, lay it on me.
Okay, so
I didn't do a lot of work of the lore. I wanted to, but
the production you did a lot of research. In terms of the lore, the theories that I've come across were that none of it existed, and it was the only person we really see die, or we really know that dies, is Heather. And one of the crazy theories is that Mike and Josh brought her there because they had worked with her prior and did not like working with her, and went out there for more sinister reasons and killed her in that cabin. That's one of the theories. Another theory, I think one of the more popular ones, which is supported by the 2016 sequel, Blair Witch, is that when you are in, what's that place? What are the woods called? Like Black Hill or some shit like that?
I was going to say the 100-acre woods, but that's where Winnie the Pooh lives.
Yeah, which is just as terrifying.
There's a horror Winnie the Pooh coming out this year.
Shut the fuck up, really? Like,
we can maybe talk about it
we'll
later.
talk about it at the end, maybe. So with this theory, when you're in the woods, when you're within the vicinity of where the Blair Witch existed, you get stuck in a time loop. You get stuck in a time loop. They say that after Rustin Parr committed those murders back in like the 40s or whenever the fuck, that people had gone out there and burned down the cabin and it shouldn't exist there. But since they're in a time loop, they exist.
They do mention something about that, don't they?
Yeah, dude. And it's like, I'm getting goosebumps right now, no, even though I know it's fake, but these theories are scary.
This part about it, it kind of excites me too. Like, I'm kind of a little like, because they did such a good job of, this lore around it is very fascinating.
It's so good, man.
I mean, it's the reason why people believe in the Mothman and Sasquatch and shit like that. It's like
the origins,
because you hear stories like this and you're like, I mean, that all seems pretty legit,
dude. At this point, fuck it if it's fake. It's so intriguing, right? So like with that time loop type of thing, like in the 2016 sequel.
Have you seen it?
I've seen it, and I saw it in theaters, and it was actually really scary, and I liked it.
So there's Blair Witch.
The Blair Witch Project, the 1991, and then there's the Blair Witch Project 2, and it has some like some subtitle for it.
And then the other one is
Blair Witch, which came out in 2016.
And what happens in that one?
In that one, I mean, similarly, I think they knew about the missing people, and they also tried to make a documentary and find out what happened there, and instead, like, they get stuck in this time loop where it's like, it's been like daytime for so fucking long, right? What's going on? It's been hours. Like, how come the sun's not coming down? And then I think it becomes nighttime for hella fucking long. And they make it pretty apparent, like, okay, they're stuck in a time loop. So what's happening in this one in 1999, this time loop is like shooting them back to when Rustin Parr's house did exist. And also their scope of time is feeling like they've been walking for 15 hours and not going anywhere, which is why they end up in the same place, or like the entire place rearranges. I'm not too sure, but that's one of the theories.
Well, I'm not going hiking anytime soon.
No, that shit scares me. I would have avoided this movie from the very beginning by saying, nope, I'm cool off your documentary. No, thank you. Don't go in those woods. You're never going to see a movie about a bunch of brown people being down to go to where there is a haunted place.
It's called Scary Movie.
Straight up. Oh, they talk about it, right?
They did it in Scary Movie. No, I mean, I'm honestly a little scared right now hearing all that stuff.
It's a little creepy, man.
Time loops, though, I will say time loop does kind of take me out of it a little bit, only because whenever I think of time loop, I always think of the Twilight Zone episode where they're astronauts, whatever. They're flying over Mars, and they're responding to a distress signal.
Oh, I know where you're going with this. Yeah,
and they see the ship down there that's been destroyed. So they go and they're like, "All right, well, we gotta help them. We gotta figure it out." So they go down there to help them, and on their way down there, they crash, and they're trying to figure shit out, trying to save themselves, and they realize that they are the ship that they saw crash. And at the same time that they're trying to figure that out, here comes their ship flying over, doing the same argument of like, there's a down ship there with the distress signal.
We gotta go there, blah, blah, blah.
And it's a fucking loop.
It's a loop.
And so I always think of that as being very scary. I also don't know too much witchcraft that deals with time stuff. As much of the witchcraft that I know, and I've read a lot, and I've associated with quite a few witches of multiple degrees, both left and right hand, both black and white, both chaos and, not chaos magic. I'm not sure what you would do. Magic with a K.
Yeah.
And I don't know any of them who know how to control time.
Is there anything accurate about what you know about witchcraft that is accurate with this movie? Like the pile of rocks,
all the stuff
sticks.
that they talk about with the Salem witch trials all seems very realistic to me and true. I mean, who knows what they did? The Salem witch trials were just a bunch of really fucked up, crazy times where they were just killing a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was because women had orgasms and they didn't like that. A lot of guys were cheating on their wives and blamed it on a witch. It's
witch
like
spell.
It all the worst part about the Salem witch trials is if you really look into it, it all boils down to either like that little girl just said something and now everyone's gonna believe it, or it's like that guy who's clearly cheating on his wife said something and we're all gonna believe it. Or maybe there was a bunch of witches and they killed a whole bunch of them, and now they're all
did the right thing.
I mean, who knows?
No,
who knows? People still practice. Like I said, people still practice witchcraft. There's a lot of unexplained things. Now that I've done a couple of things, I don't sit as firmly as I was in the. None of it is possible. It's completely impossible.
You're more open-minded.
I now have unanswered questions that lead me to having to at least acknowledge that something's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, dude, it's
tough. Especially, I mean, you know me.
Yeah. I grew up with a superstitious family, so I believe in anything supernatural. I believe that it's possible. I don't believe like directly in all of it, but I'm like, hey, I don't want to say that it's not possible at all, and then end up fucking dying in a
and that's always
middle
been
of the woods.
that's always been a thought. Not to take away from the movie too much, but that of like, hey, just in case, I better go to church or whatever. I better do this, whatever. That to me has always been kind of like a cop out of being like, well, if you're doing it just in case, then you kind of don't actually believe it, right?
Yeah.
And that's my justification for it. But in this moment, in what we're talking about, in this witchcraft,
Yeah.
because I even fucking hate saying it, and I even hate following it up with a sentence of, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's okay
When
to
we
not know
started
it.
this podcast, I was firmly seated in, because I had read all this stuff, and I still, it's not like I forgot any of that shit, but like I said, I have a couple of things that don't have the answers that I would think would make sense. And unless I have, I mean, a way to prove it another way, and I don't.
Well, like whatever this movie did, I think it did something right. I think it did something right.
Scared the shit out of a bunch of kids.
Yeah, I think one of the first showings of this movie, the directors had watched their reactions for the ending, because the ending was very ambiguous. We see Mike facing the corner, and we see Heather fall, and her camera falls down to the ground, and we assume that she's dead. And it was very ambiguous, and they like took a survey of like 20 viewers that watched the first showing, and they said like, what did you think? And like they were like, oh, we're all confused. However, when they asked, were you guys scared? 19 of the 20 viewers raised their hands.
Oh,
and
of
it
course.
was very scary because those last 10 minutes. And imagine watching this. I don't know how you watch this, but imagine watching this in a dark theater.
Oh, it'd be terrifying.
It being the first of its kind,
Did it
too.
in the bright daylight because I knew, that would help.
And it gets so stressful. I remember some of the best moments were like when they would wake up from the tent. When they first started hearing voices. When they first started hearing voices outside of their tent, and like a baby crying and some like weird hooting and whatnot. And they got out and they're right. I was like, those are owls, right? But Heather screaming, "What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that?" I think was like, oh, that sounds real. That sounds like something I would say if I really saw something in the woods and I'm running away.
So that scene, when it was written, we were supposed to get a vision of the Blair Witch. When they wrote that scene in the script, when she says that what the fuck, Josh or Mike or whoever the fuck it is on the camera was supposed to pan left, and we were supposed to get a brief glimpse of the Blair Witch. But in the moment, in the recording of it, he didn't look left.
Oh, he didn't
just
catch
kept
it.
going. And they kept that in the film. And so you don't actually see the Blair Witch at all in this film, which is why I have that theory that the killer is still around and doing these things. I do have a question for you, though. Mike, he was facing the corner.
Yeah.
Did he live?
We don't know.
What do you think? I'm asking you.
Oh, did he live? No, I think he died. If the lore that
they
people are
found
talking about,
yeah.
if they're saying that Rustin Parr, if it gets them in twos alone
Also,
at
what
that
the
place,
fuck kind of name is Rustin?
no clue.
It's clearly an anagram for
Some
Rasputin.
guy that lived in. I'm not going to question it. Someone that lived in
Rustin's
the early
not a name.
1900s.
Dustin is a name.
Or he could have changed his name.
Justin is a name.
I don't know. It's a weird serial killer.
Rustin.
It's a weird serial killer that ended up in the woods by himself. You know.
Parr is a real last name. I have a cousin named Parr.
They said that Rustin Parr was killing those people. And I was like, this can't be fucking real. They said that after those 7 kids disappeared in Burkittsville, Maryland, that he came to town and he said, it's done with. And they're like, what the fuck is done with? And he said, like, I listened to the voices and like they've now I stopped hearing them. He said that after he killed those kids, he stopped hearing those voices. I'm like, this is a fucking scary story.
Well, yes, it is. That's terrifying. And the other thing I was just thinking about was if we went camping and I heard voices outside of the tent, I would think I'd need to change my meds again. Because the last time I heard voices
just like,
was when I was on Wellbutrin. And they took me off that right away, and I stopped hearing voices.
There you go.
So
stay in the tent and just change your medication.
just remember to call my doctor when I get home.
Would you have stayed in your tent?
Fuck yeah.
So after hearing
Also,
Josh's
none
yells,
of them brought any kind of weaponry with them.
No, they
not a
weren't ready.
machete or an axe or a knife or a gun.
Well, they brought camping gear just in case. They didn't plan on staying the night in the woods. They planned on like going deep into the woods and coming back out to the car.
Didn't they plan for 3 days?
Something like that. Well,
So I think they plan to stay at least a night.
okay.
I think they plan to stay at least a night because when they're all freaking out and Josh is like, my girlfriend's going to realize that I'm not there. They're going to start calling people and asking people for help.
And he says, I have work at 9 tomorrow.
Yeah.
I have work at 9
You
tomorrow.
ain't making it, buddy. Also,
sorry.
the most absurd, outlandish thing about this whole film was when Heather's like, it's pretty hard to get lost in America nowadays. It's like, no, people get lost in America all the time. Like, we lose people. Have you ever seen the map of missing people in America and where they were last seen?
I feel like I would avoid something like that.
There's a map on the internet, and then they overlay that on the cave systems in America, and they, like, 80% of them line up with the cave systems of America.
Scary.
So it's just like, we lose people
could still get
all the fucking time.
All the time.
We lose people all the time.
Yeah.
They got 127 hours, dude. Cut his fucking arm off because he was lost for so long.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, this movie actually reminded me a lot of 127 hours, but maybe because that's a found footage handheld sort of thing too. But
I thought it was ridiculous.
But yeah, that was the most ridiculous part of the whole film was her being like, people don't get lost in America anymore. I'm like, I had a friend get lost in fucking Palm Springs.
People
that
can't
whole
find my
city's
house.
5 miles by 4 miles.
Okay, yeah, people still get lost with GPS.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I was like, man, girl, if you were still alive, Heather, if you were still alive, you'd be surprised what your phone
How
could
often
do
people, yeah. And also how people still get lost.
with their GPS.
Does not matter. I'm almost more lost with a GPS.
Then if you were to
Because
follow
I'm
a
just
map,
trusting it. I guess I'm going down Compton Street. You know
I
what I
guess
mean?
so.
If we were out in the woods, me, you, and we'll say Otis,
Sure.
would we fight? I mean,
Yeah.
can you even fight back?
With that kind of tense situation, we'd get upset. Well, let's say
We would, first of all, the three of us would be up all night, sitting back to back to back,
yeah, we're cuddling.
just
I don't care.
watching. But I mean, back to back to back.
Yeah, if it's getting that cold, we're making body contact. I don't give a fuck.
Okay,
But if you guys are
dibs on the middle.
sure. If anyone kicked the map up the creek, I'd be pissed. If anyone ate all the food much faster than what's allocated equally for the rest of us, I'd be pissed.
Fun fact about the food: while they were filming this, the director and the producer gave the actors less and less food as they were out there.
No.
So that the bickering and the argument was even a little more intense.
So they actually agitated the actors to get it out.
Oh
of
yeah,
them.
and the actors didn't know it was a made-up story until after it was finished filming.
So they thought it was real.
They thought
Shut up,
it was a real lore, but we're making a movie out here in the woods, but here's the story. And it wasn't until after that the directors told them, yeah, they made it all up.
Did they actually have them camp out there for the duration of
I don't know
filming?
if they slept all night, but they definitely kept them out there pretty late at night and made them, they definitely weren't going back to the Holiday Inn for breakfast. They didn't get a continental breakfast before that. So I would say probably. I mean, if we had to film a movie and it took place outside,
We're staying
we would
outside.
just do all the shots.
But there's no trailer nearby. They have to be near a road. They're not like deep in the middle of the
Sure,
woods.
they filmed it at Lake Herman instead of,
That scares the shit out of me. I couldn't even do that. I know when they were auditioning people or like putting up like when they were like asking for people to audition for the movie, they said, we're not taking anyone that can't spend more than like a night in the woods. Crazy,
I mean, I've
crazy
camped.
criteria.
I've camped in Yosemite, and I've camped at like nice campsites, and I've camped in cabins, and I've camped, at the Grand Canyon and shit.
Yeah.
If even one of those things, something shakes the tent, or I hear somebody screaming, or children laughing, I'd be gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude,
Wow.
what else is there to talk about this movie? We talked about the theories. We talked about like the lore. We talked about like the post and pre-production. This movie is a beast, and I'm happy that you agreed to do it as an opener to our
Spooky season.
spooky season of ICBTB, dude. It feels good to talk about a movie.
Spooky season's gonna be fun this year. Like you said in the beginning, I'm a little more well-rounded to the spooky and the horror. I'm not going to Fright Fest or any bullshit like that, but I am going to Oogie Boogie.
Yeah, you are.
So that'll be fun.
That'll be fun, and that's probably like the pinnacle of how down you're willing to get with the spooky season.
I mean, yeah.
Because you seem the type of guy who goes into a haunted house at like
I don't go into haunted houses.
Halloween Horror Nights, and
I don't do that.
You'd be the guy that actually would punch an actor and be like, "I'm supposed to scare you."
That's why I don't go to those things.
Yeah, at least you know that you shouldn't. if
I
you're
just
gonna
don't like
react that
being
way.
scared.
Yeah,
That's like, it's also not even like the machismo of it, of being like, I'll punch a guy in the face. It's also like, no, by the time I'm punching a guy in the face, I've already pissed my pants and I'm crying. So it's not like a tough guy thing at all.
It's not anything
I'm
by
just
your pride.
avoiding all of it.
It's your instinct. Yeah.
Yeah. No haunted, creepy, spooky, terrible, forbidden, none of that shit.
Well, the movies that Karen and I have kind of lined up for the rest of the spooky season for ICBTB, you should prepare yourself.
Fantastic.
The next one I want to do is It Follows. I'm not going to hype it up just in case you don't find it scary or you find it ridiculous, but I found it to be very creepy. It is an interesting concept. It's a very different movie, and maybe we could do that next week.
Can we also watch maybe the first scary film I ever watched in my life?
What is it?
13 Ghosts?
Yes. Shut up. Yes.
I'm talking about the original 13 Ghosts.
Not the one with Matthew Lillard.
Maybe we can watch that one because I've never seen that one.
Watch that one.
Okay.
And then maybe I'll just watch the other one for fun, and we could talk about both on the
We
episode.
can compare notes.
Before we end the episode, I do want to say that get a good look at this room. Get a good look at this room right now, my friend, because I just bought a house. Melissa and I got the keys today, meaning, and it's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, and we're gonna have our own studio space where we don't have to walk through my parents and say hi. It's yep. I've been biting my tongue. I've been holding this from you because we just got the keys today.
We got a lot to talk about. Let's end this fucking episode because I don't want it all on mic for your privacy.
Oh yeah, about the address and all of that stuff.
Your best person on set award?
My best person on set award definitely goes to the directors.
That's where mine goes as
because, let's get their names. Do you have that open again?
Eduardo and Daniel?
Yeah. Let's just go with first names.
Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez.
Shout out to them for really creating a very different genre of horror, of found footage horror that really inspired a bunch of
Cloverfield and
Paranormal Activity,
and then all of the just like all those movies that are within FaceTime or whatever. Like,
yep.
I mean, the reason why people think it'd be fun to tell a long form story, a movie on a Snapchat or on an Instagram story is because of shit like that.
Yeah, stuff like that. Have you seen Quarantine or Record? Is what it's called.
Record. That's the one with what's his name?
I don't know.
I don't know. Probably
Well,
not.
Record is the one like where
I haven't seen it. Honestly, I haven't seen any of them.
You might be interested in that. Are you a fan of zombie movies?
I want to just talk about your new house, so let's just get this going.
Okay. Baddies. That's our best person on set. I give this movie for what it is, 3.5 out of 5.
I was gonna say 4, but 3.5 is a better number.
4 out of 5, like with everything that surrounds it.
Yeah, for sure.
Production and lore, whatnot. That shit's
so
fantastic.
we'll give it a 4 out of 5. You know, we got our best persons on set. What else? I mean, it's been so long. What else do we say?
That's
it.
usually what we say. Then we plug ourselves.
Watch the movie. Oh, I'll plug myself tonight. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
nice.
My name's Alejandro. You can follow me at call_me_Jesus.
My name is Christian. You can follow me at Christian Has Asthma.
Follow the podcast at
ICBTB
ICBTB
Podcast.
Check out our website, ICBTB.com.
And send us a message. Comment on the YouTube. On a YouTube page, we got some dude named Peyton Page that comments on every single episode saying, I have to say this real quick because he says it every single time, and he's not just spamming it. He actually replies he changes it up a little bit. Every single episode he says, I would like one of you to cut the cheese, and in parentheses, fart on the podcast until it stinks really, really bad. And he's been saying that for the past 5 or 6 episodes. And then for this last one,
it. Hey, buddy, if you're watching, if you do it for 100 episodes, I'll do it.
Alejandro will probably do that in like 2 episodes.
I mean, it's honestly happened before, but you comment on 100 episodes, I'll do it just for you. What's his handle?
His name is Peyton Page.
Peyton Page, 100 episodes. I'll do it for you, buddy.
Yeah. And then his latest one was 1 day ago. And it said, please cut the cheese /fart on the next episode of the podcast you record until it stinks really,
I hear
really
you.
bad.
I hear you. 100 episodes. I'll fucking do it.
Keep commenting. I'll keep bringing it up. Fuck yeah, dude.
And any other challenges, guys, comment. Maybe I'll do some other shit. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, Alejandro will do anything.
My body's a fucking amusement park.
We've done worse. Let's get out of here.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bad.